Hi, welcome back to Family Art Project's Depth and Distance series. Today, Ryan and I are creating works inspired by the Palisades. The Palisades are a line of steep cliffs along the Hudson River, and when you look across from the Bronx, Wave Hill in particular, you see this beautiful grand view of these Palisades, these rocks. And we're going to learn today how it is that we can still see this view, and we're going to be looking closely at these Palisades, which also there's a term Weehawken, which is what the Algonquin speaking people indigenous to the area called the Palisades, which means rocks that look like a row of trees. And we're going to be looking at these rocks that look like a row of trees to celebrate their beauty and create works inspired by that. Ryan is going to share artwork inspired by these cliffs by using a picture of the Palisades to create a map and to create a small replica of these exact Palisades, of these exact rock formations, using string art and collage. And just before that, I'll be sharing with you this short process in ways that you can, like the rock, be in a very slow, meditative build-up art-making process to really zoom in on the details of the rock strata, that is the thin layers of rocks that build up over time. So let's get started. The first thing we'll do is to get some rock rubbings. So here you can see I'm just taking my paper, holding against the rock, and using chalk or crayons to press against the rock so that I get the rock's texture as marks on my paper. You'll see that the paper I'm using is actually paper towels, and these paper towels have coffee stains on them already because I was actually using these as coffee filters when I had run out. I kept them because I knew I could make something from the awesome prints that coffee made for me. Do you have any materials that you would normally throw away that you can keep to make art with? So you'll just see that I'm adding marks through lines and kind of random mark making. I'm doing this to illustrate that the layers in rocks are called strata, kind of build up on each other. So each layer that you see in a rock is generally one of a number of parallel layers that lie one upon another, laid down by natural processes. I like to think that this slow process of making marks is kind of a meditative way, and it's honoring what rocks have to teach us. Rocks are formed from very slow processes. So looking at these layers in a rock can help us remember how long the earth has lived before us. I like to remember this when I think about change and what persistent effort can mean. The Palisades can teach us about this too. Many people know that the Palisades were in danger of being destroyed by people who were blowing up these special rocks so that they could take the rocks to build. What doesn't get talked about as much is how the Palisades got saved. Lots of people name men like George Perkins and other residents who stopped the quarrying or taking the rock, but important people who were less wealthy but very persistent in standing up for these special cliffs often go unrecognized. There was a women's group in New Jersey who made a lot of noise for the Palisades to tell people how wrong it was to take from the earth with such disrespect. I share this information with you so that you can create work and think about the rocks that have formed eons even before you existed. You can think about rocks like the Palisades and what they have to teach you. How can you be like a rock and keep your patience as change happens? There's a quote that I love that I think is very in keeping with what rocks have to teach us. Author Adrienne Marie Brown says to move at the speed of trust. What do you think rocks have to teach us about building trust? What do you think rocks have to teach us about learning to be with one another? So there you have one way of approaching this project of honoring the Palisades, by taking a cue from rocks and slowing down. And now Ryan is going to teach us another technique in which we can zoom out and look at the Palisades in all of their detail.
Hi everyone. For this project, Geological Wonders, I'm going to walk you through how I am building what you see here. This is a replica of the Hudson River Palisades, and we're going to go through a really unique and fun process on how to create what looks like a rocky palisade. What we're looking at here is an image of the Hudson River Palisades. I'm using it as a reference for me to be able to create my image. You won't have to do this if you don't like. You can create however you like, but I like the idea of creating a exact replica for my project, or close replica. So the first thing that we're doing is creating a map. And what you see me doing here is putting marks down where the shadows and the light parts are. So I'm just creating essentially an outline of my structure. And once it's done, I'll transfer that outline onto a large sheet of cardboard. Again, you don't need to do this part of the project. Whatever reference you want to create or make up your own reference of a palisade, you can do. Now that we have our image outline, I have a long sheet of cardboard that's about the same size, and I've created 2 lines down the middle to match my cardboard to be as close as I can be. Now I'm making those same dots that I did on my sheet of paper. I'm doing the same thing now on my cardboard. It's not an exact match, but it doesn't have to be. It can be close enough. After drawing a couple of dots, before I get too far and confuse myself, I'm going to make my line marks to begin building the shape together. I'm also going to mark in the areas that are shadows by just making a couple of lines and marks, because later on I'm going to put some collage paper to distinguish it. And so I don't confuse myself, I want to put those marks in now. Now that we have all of our marks made and lined up, I'm putting tacks down at each point where I made a dot. If you can't see the dots that you made because you covered them all up with lines, pretty much at any point where you make a line and it breaks or curves to begin a new line, that's where you can put your push pins. Now we can get our long roll of string. We're going to try to make this whole thing, this entire string, wrap around our push pins in one try. So you'll want to keep your string on the roll. Don't cut it off just yet, not until we get to the end. You might find that at points when you have shapes that are in spots that are hard to get to while keeping on one string, you might have to cut it at some point and tie a new string around a certain area. But it's kind of fun if you can keep it all on one string, and it's actually easier. Now I had to make a break at one point because I have a shape on the inside of my shape, my outline, and I wasn't able to reach it on one try. So I'm tying off my string, cutting it off, then I'll start a new one just for this piece here. Now where I'm putting my string, it's important to make sure that I cover the parts to where I created my slash lines that are going to be again later on where I put my collage paper on. Here's an overview of what we've done so far. Now we'll put our cardboard sheet to the side just for a moment, and we're going to grab 2 plastic cups or any kind of jar cup that you can put your collage paper in. I've sorted my collage paper by color, so I put all the warm colors like orange, red, yellow into one pile, and my green into another pile, and I'm just going to start shredding all of my paper. Here's what it looks like with the jar full. You can see there's green in my left hand and the colors in my right hand. Now we're going to pull our cardboard sheet back and we're going to start placing our collage down. I'm gluing in all the areas where I again made my slash lines. That is going to be my shadow area for my palisade. And I'm placing my collage down to look almost like an autumn time. I know we're in spring right now, but I'm using, out of respect of using the materials that I have in my apartment, I'm using magazines that have a lot of colors, and I really want to utilize those colors that I have. I want to add some more layers of shadows. So I'm going to use some paint here, and we're using brown and a blue color. And you can see the way I'm making my lines. I'm creating kind of like almost looks like a thunderstorm. It makes it look kind of rocky in those areas. Here's another overview shot of what we have so far. It's been a long process to this point, but we're finally at our last step, and that's to cut out our shape so we can really highlight the form and the structure that we put together. So I'm just going to make lines or an outline around my shape so I know where to cut, and I'm just going to take my scissors to it and cut. It can be a bit hard to cut cardboard with scissors, but you just play around with it a bit. It'll start to come apart. Now we have our clean cut out image, and it looks great, and we're done. Here is again an image of our Hudson River Palisade that we made together. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you participated and made one yourselves, of course we'd love if you shared it with us by posting it on your social media page and tagging Wave Hill and using the hashtag depth and distance. Thank you again, and hopefully we see you next week.